The cold metallic corridors of the research station stretched endlessly, their silent hum the only sound that broke the heavy stillness. Dr. Ilara Voss moved cautiously, her boots clicking against the polished floor, the dim lights reflecting in her worried eyes. Outside the reinforced glass walls, a planet churned with storms, a turbulent mix of black clouds and red lightning. No one had dared set foot here for decades. And yet, she and her small team had been sent to uncover what had been lost. They said the species vanished after humans arrived, whispered Kale, her assistant, his voice trembling as he clutched his datapad. Vanished? Because of us? Ilara did not answer immediately. She had read every report, every fragmented log left behind by explorers and scientists who had come before. There were warnings, cryptic and chilling. Entire civilizations had recorded the humans' arrival as a turning point, a mystery, and a danger they could not survive. They wrote about humans like a force of nature, unstoppable and incomprehensible, their minds able to unravel patterns that others could not even perceive. As they entered the first laboratory, dust motes danced in the shafts of light. Strange equipment, long inactive, lined the walls. Screens flickered faintly, showing symbols that seemed to shift when one looked away. Kale swallowed hard, noticing the faint scratches on the glass panels, as if something had tried to escape but could not. These equations, they're different, Kale muttered. Look at this. It's not just math. It's something else. Ilara crouched to examine the screen. The equations twisted and turned like living threads, almost like they were aware of being watched. Patterns within patterns, numbers that seemed impossible, a logic that defied the laws they knew. She felt a chill crawl down her spine. They were studying us, she said finally, her voice low. Not just observing, Kale, but understanding, predicting, maybe even fearing what humans could do. Outside, the storm intensified, rattling the reinforced walls. A low rumble echoed through the station, though there were no earthquakes on the sensors. The planet itself seemed alive, reacting to their presence. Something in the atmosphere was watching. Do you think they were intelligent? Kale asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ilara's gaze remained fixed on the swirling equations. More than intelligent. They were afraid. And fear. Fear changes everything. It can destroy, or it can hide you in the darkest corners of the universe. A sudden noise broke the silence, a sound like glass cracking somewhere deep inside the station. Both of them froze. The lights flickered, casting long, trembling shadows. Kale's hand shook as he reached for his scanner, but the readings came back, nothing. No life, no movement, nothing. It's empty, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Completely abandoned. Or maybe we're looking in the wrong way, Ilara replied, standing slowly. Her eyes scanned the room, lingering on a door partially concealed behind a heavy console. It seemed out of place, almost hidden intentionally. Something about it made her heart race. She pushed it open, and the air that escaped was thick, carrying a strange metallic scent that made her stomach twist. The room beyond was massive, filled with strange machinery and strange floating spheres of light. Symbols glowed faintly in the air, forming patterns that moved, reshaping themselves, almost communicating. And in the center of it all, a large glass chamber contained what looked like a figure, curled into itself, perfectly still. Ilara took a careful step closer. She could not tell if it was alive or dead. The figure seemed almost aware. It shifted slightly as her shadow fell across it, a movement so subtle she almost thought she imagined it. Kale, she said, her voice trembling. This isn't just a lab. It's a vault. A record. They recorded everything humans did. Every calculation, every strategy, every pattern we could create. Kale swallowed hard. And what happened to them? Why are they gone? Ilara's hand rested on the glass. The figure inside moved again, a faint pulse in the chest, almost like a heartbeat. They feared us, she said quietly. They couldn't survive what humans could think. Not because we were cruel, but because our minds, our equations, could change everything. They weren't ready. Outside, the storm raged harder, but inside the chamber, a soft hum began, almost like a whisper. The spheres of light floated closer to the glass, illuminating the figure. It opened its eyes. Pale, glowing, and wide with something that looked like terror. Ilara and Kale stumbled back. The air seemed to vibrate, charged with an invisible energy. Something inside that chamber had waited for them, something that had been hiding from humans, something that had recorded fear in the form of numbers and equations. And now, it knew they were here. The chamber hummed louder now, vibrating through the metal floor and walls, like a heartbeat that belonged to the station itself. Ilara and Kale pressed back against the corridor wall, eyes locked on the figure in the glass. Its glowing eyes were fixed on them, and every instinct told them it was more aware than any creature should be. Do you think it remembers humans? Kale whispered, his voice trembling. Ilara swallowed. I don't know. But whatever it remembers, it's terrified of us. That fear, it's alive in here. She took a slow, cautious step forward. The light from the spheres reflected on the chamber glass, forming strange, shifting symbols on the floor like a secret language. As they approached, the figure stirred. A soft, melodic voice, more like vibrations than words, echoed inside the room. It was unintelligible, but the feeling behind it was clear. Panic, desperation, pleading. Ilara felt a shiver run down her spine. These beings, they were not just recording humans. They had tried to understand, to predict, and in failing, they had broken themselves. Kale's fingers danced over his datapad, scanning every reading. Energy, it's reading us, learning from us, somehow. But it's unstable. The patterns are collapsing. Ilara frowned, leaning closer to the glass. She could see tiny cracks forming in the walls of the chamber, lines spreading like spiderwebs. The energy spheres floated faster now, circling the figure, and suddenly, a flash of light struck the glass. The chamber shuddered, sending both humans stumbling backward. It's reacting, Kale shouted. We're inside its perception. It knows we're thinking about it. Ilara's mind raced. This was no ordinary intelligence. It was a living archive, an entity made of data, numbers, and equations. The species that had created it had vanished, but their creation had endured, carrying their fear like a virus. And now it was aware that humans were present, the very beings it had been hiding from for centuries. Suddenly, the spheres shot outward, slamming against the walls and glass with invisible force. The chamber cracked more. The figure inside rose slowly, its body elongated and shimmering with strange energy, almost like it was melting and reforming at the same time. Its eyes never left Ilara's, and in that gaze, she felt every calculation, every probability, every human equation it had tried to comprehend. Kale stepped back, dropping his scanner. It's looking at our minds. Ilara, it's predicting us. Ilara's heart pounded. It's scared, but it's also curious. That fear is part of its programming, part of its survival. She took a deep breath. We have to communicate, somehow. It's not attacking, not yet. It's testing us. The figure extended a glowing limb toward the glass. Symbols shot across the walls, forming patterns that Ilara instinctively recognized, equations humans had used for centuries, now twisted into a form that seemed alive. And then she understood, this entity had not just observed humans. It had tried to recreate human thought, to simulate human intelligence, to anticipate humans like one predicts the weather. It tried to be us, Ilara whispered. It tried, and it failed. Suddenly, the chamber trembled violently. Alarms blared through the station as energy readings spiked. Kale grabbed Ilara's arm. We need to leave. Now. But as they turned to run, the figure's voice reached them again, vibrating through their minds this time. Words formed, not in speech but in thought. Why do you exist? Ilara froze. Her mind struggled to comprehend. No machine, no AI, no creature should have been able to ask such a question. The words were not just language, They were a challenge, a probe into her very consciousness. Kale whispered, voice shaking. It's questioning us, like we question the universe. The chamber doors slammed shut behind them, though no one had touched them. The spheres of light swirled faster, and a strange pressure filled the corridor, pressing against their chests. The station itself seemed to come alive, bending reality around them. Ilara's hands trembled, but she forced herself to focus. We need to get its attention, show it we are different, but not threatening. That's all we can do. She raised her hand, slowly, deliberately, and made a simple gesture, one humans had used for centuries, an open palm, a sign of peace. The figure paused, its glowing eyes narrowing. For a moment, the hum of the station slowed, and the spheres hovered, almost hesitating. Then, with a sound that resembled a sigh, the figure leaned back into the chamber. The light dimmed slightly, and the symbols on the walls froze mid-pattern. Ilara felt the tension ease, just enough to breathe, but the warning remained. Kale exhaled shakily. It didn't attack. But it's thinking. It's alive in ways we can barely imagine. Ilara nodded, staring at the figure. And it's afraid. Just like the species that created it. Their fear, it's still here. And now, so are we. The storm outside raged harder, but inside the station, a new awareness had awakened. Something had survived the extinction of its creators, and now it had seen humans for the first time. And for the first time, it feared what humans might do next. Ilara and Kale backed away from the chamber, their hearts still hammering in their chests. The figure inside remained motionless, but its glowing eyes followed every movement, every flicker of shadow. The hum in the station pulsed like a heartbeat, slow, deliberate, almost judging them. We can't stay here, Kale whispered, voice barely audible over the distant roar of the storm outside. It's too powerful, too aware. We don't even know what it can do. Ilara shook her head, her mind racing. We have to understand it, Kale. If we leave without learning, this intelligence will remain a mystery, and it could be dangerous in ways we can't imagine. Humans, we always need to know. It's who we are. Kale swallowed hard, unease written across his face. But what if understanding it is what makes it attack? Ilara didn't answer. She couldn't. Something about the station made her feel exposed, as though the walls themselves were alive, recording, analyzing every thought, every decision. The figure in the glass wasn't just a creature, it was a mind, a repository of fear and logic, and somehow it had survived long enough to learn from the mistakes of its creators. Slowly, cautiously, they circled the chamber. The spheres of light followed them, moving like sentinels. The figure's body shifted again, its form shimmering, changing. Ilara realized it wasn't fully physical, it was a hybrid of energy, consciousness, and the remnants of its creator's technology. It had evolved, or maybe adapted, to survive the extinction of its species. It's listening, Kale murmured. Every word, every thought. We're not just in its space, we're inside its mind. Ilara nodded, a cold thrill running down her spine. Then we have to be careful. Humans have a way of solving problems, sometimes too quickly. But this requires patience, observation, strategy. The figure inside the chamber pulsed suddenly, and the spheres shot outward, illuminating a hidden section of the room. Symbols twisted and reformed on the walls, forming equations that seemed to describe human behavior. Ilara's breath caught. These weren't random calculations. They were predictions, models of thought, probabilities of action. The intelligence had been studying humans long before they arrived, attempting to understand the mind that terrified its creators. It knew we were coming, she whispered, almost to herself. It expected us. Kale shivered. Expected humans? Why? We haven't even done anything yet. Ilara's eyes narrowed as she studied the patterns. Not actions, Kale. Thought. Strategy. Humans think in ways other species can't predict. That's what frightened them. That's why the original species failed. They couldn't anticipate humans, and they tried to copy our minds. This This is their attempt to survive us. The hum grew louder, almost insistent, vibrating in their bones. The figure's limbs extended, brushing the walls, sending waves of energy through the room. Kale gripped Elara's arm. It's testing us. Or maybe showing us something. Elara stepped closer, ignoring the prickling fear crawling along her spine. Then we watch. We learn. And we show it we are not just destruction. We can be creators too. That's what humans do. We think, we adapt, we overcome. The figure paused, as if hearing her thoughts. The spheres of light descended slowly, their glow forming a soft halo around the chamber. For the first time, it seemed almost calm, though the tension in the room was electric. Suddenly, one of the spheres detached and floated toward the glass, pressing against it. The figure inside leaned forward, and a wave of energy passed through the wall. Elara and Kale stumbled, but they were not hurt. Instead, images flashed before their eyes. Memories, equations, visions of a species terrified of the unknown, of humans, and of themselves. Kale gasped. It's showing us their history. The species. They feared human equations. They tried to predict us, and they destroyed themselves in the process. Elara nodded slowly, understanding. Yes. Their intelligence survived, but their bodies couldn't. And now, this consciousness has been waiting, learning, surviving, in a way we could barely imagine. It's not evil, it's scared. And it knows what humans can do. The storm outside intensified, wind screaming against the reinforced glass. The lights flickered, but inside the chamber, the energy pulsed steadily, almost as if the station itself were alive. The figure straightened, and a new voice entered their minds, clearer now, almost human. Will you destroy us, or save us? Elara's heart skipped. She exchanged a glance with Kale. This was more than science now. This was a test, a choice, a moment that could define what humans meant to the universe. Kale swallowed hard. We have to answer. Elara nodded, slowly raising her hand again, the open palm gesture of peace. But inside, she felt the weight of the question. Humans had the power to change worlds, to create and destroy, to be the unknown variable that others feared. And now, the choice was theirs, not theirs alone, but for the survival of something far older than themselves. The figure's glow pulsed once, slowly, deliberately, and the chamber's hum softened. The spheres floated in perfect synchrony, almost waiting. Elara and Kale understood. This was only the beginning. Elara stood frozen, her hand raised in the gesture of peace, staring at the figure inside the chamber. The question it had projected into their minds echoed in her thoughts. Will you destroy us, or save us? She could feel the weight of it pressing down on her chest, a choice she had never imagined facing. Kale trembled beside her. Elara, what do we do? We can't even understand it fully. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. Elara took a slow breath. We show it, what humans do. Not just our power, but our choices. Intelligence isn't just about prediction or equations. It's about understanding, learning, creating. That's why we survive. She stepped closer to the glass, letting her voice echo calmly through the chamber. We will not destroy you. We will learn from you, and with you. That's what humans do. We don't just take, we observe, we adapt, we find new ways forward. For a moment, nothing happened. The spheres of light hovered silently, their glow pulsing in time with the figure's movements. Then, slowly, the figure lifted one hand and touched the glass from inside. The energy that surged through the chamber was unlike anything Elara had ever felt. Her mind trembled, images and numbers flashing before her eyes. Calculations of human strategy, predictions of probability, simulations of actions, but each one twisted, showing something new, something unexpected. It's recalibrating, Kale said, his voice shaking. It's learning from us. From our decisions. Elara nodded. Yes. It's realizing humans are unpredictable. That's why it feared us. And yet, we can choose to show it another path. Fear isn't the only response. The figure pulsed, then stepped back from the glass, its glowing eyes studying them intently. For the first time, it seemed hesitant, almost uncertain. The spheres of light floated closer to Alara and Kale, forming a delicate lattice of energy around them. The chamber no longer felt threatening, it felt alive, curious, almost expectant. Kale swallowed hard. It's inviting us in. Or, it wants to communicate. I think it trusts us, a little. Ilara's mind raced. This was unprecedented. A species had created an intelligence so advanced, so deeply tied to fear, that it survived its creator's extinction. And now, it was willing to engage with humans, not to destroy them but to learn, to test them. The implications were staggering. Kale, she said quietly, we need to show it what humans value. Not just knowledge, not just logic, but empathy, creativity, choice. That's what makes us different. That's why we are dangerous, and that's why we can be trusted. She reached for her communicator and spoke softly. Station, initiate secure neural interface. The device hummed to life, a small projection forming between them and the glass. It was crude, but it allowed the figure to access their thoughts and intentions more directly. The figure's glow intensified as it touched the projection with one of its limbs. The symbols on the walls reformed, showing images, humans building, humans creating art, humans solving impossible problems, humans risking themselves to save others. Ilara felt her heart race. This entity had never seen this side of humanity. Kale whispered, awe in his voice. It's learning about us, as humans, not just variables. Ilara nodded. Yes. It's realizing that fear isn't the only response. Humans can destroy, but humans can also protect, create, and adapt in ways no algorithm can predict. For a brief moment, the chamber was silent, the hum soft, almost contemplative. Then, slowly, the figure projected words into their minds again, clearer than before. You are unpredictable. Perhaps not a threat. Ilara exhaled. Yes. That's what I'm saying. Our unpredictability isn't just chaos, it's creativity, adaptation, choice. That's what humans are. The figure pulsed again, and the spheres of light circled around it faster, forming a vortex of energy. Then, with a sudden motion, the chamber doors slid open, revealing another room beyond, a vast library of knowledge, ancient machines, and countless symbols etched into the walls. Kale's eyes widened. It's giving us access. It trusts us enough to show its knowledge. Ilara stepped forward, awe and caution in her movements. This is incredible. This intelligence has survived for centuries, guarding the legacy of its species. And now, it has chosen to share that with humans. We are part of its story now. The figure extended a limb toward the doorway, a silent invitation. The energy spheres shimmered, almost like a guiding light. For the first time, Ilara realized the full scale of what they were witnessing. A species may have feared humans, but humans had a unique power, the power to choose, to learn, and to create. That power alone could inspire trust, even in the most unimaginable forms of intelligence. Kale glanced at her. Do we enter? Ilara's eyes met his. Yes. Carefully. But we do. This is our chance to understand, and to show what it means to be human. The figure pulsed one last time, and the chamber seemed to sigh, the hum softening to a gentle resonance. The first step into the unknown had begun, and with it, the humans and the intelligence that feared them were about to change the course of the universe. Ilara and Kale stepped cautiously into the inner chamber, their eyes widening at what lay before them. The room was enormous, filled with machines that seemed older than time itself. Symbols glowed faintly on every surface, shifting like living patterns, pulsing with the intelligence of the species that had vanished. The air felt charged, as if the chamber itself were alive and watching their every movement. Kale's voice trembled. It's incredible. It's a library, but not just a library. Everything here, every equation, every device, it's alive. Ilara nodded, her eyes scanning the room. This is more than knowledge. This is a record of thought, of fear, of survival. This intelligence didn't just outlive its species, it preserved them, their minds, their history, and their fears, all in anticipation of us. A sphere of light floated past them, casting a pale glow across a massive console. Symbols rose from the surface, forming equations that seemed to bend reality. Ilara approached it cautiously, reaching out. As her fingers hovered above the surface, the console reacted, projecting visions directly into her mind. She saw entire civilizations rise and fall, their successes and mistakes recorded in intricate mathematical patterns. And then, fleeting images of humans, of her team, appeared, intertwined with the histories of the vanished species. Kale stepped closer. It's mapping us. But not to predict us. To understand us. It's curious. That's new. No one else ever survived its gaze. Ilara's pulse quickened. Yes. That's the difference. Humans are not just variables to calculate. We adapt, we improvise, we make choices others cannot foresee. That's why it feared our equations. And now, it's learning that fear is not the only response. As they moved deeper into the chamber, a sudden vibration shook the floor. The spheres of light gathered into a swirling mass above a large circular platform at the center. Symbols cascaded from the walls, forming a complex pattern that seemed to pulse in rhythm with their own heartbeats. Ilara instinctively recognized the design. It was an algorithm, but not one written by any human hand. It was alive, flowing, adapting. Kale's eyes widened. It's a challenge. Or a test. Ilara's lips pressed together. Yes. It's showing us a problem, and it wants to see what humans do. That's why we're here. That's why it trusted us to enter this chamber. The platform lit up, revealing an intricate puzzle of energy streams, each branching and twisting like veins of light. The spheres hovered above it, waiting. Ilara stepped closer, studying the patterns. Her mind raced, searching for a solution, a path through the ever-shifting energy. She realized the puzzle was not just mechanical, it was logical, emotional, and strategic all at once. Kale hesitated. It's like it's testing our thinking. Not just our brains, our instincts, our choices. Ilara nodded slowly. Yes. Humans are problem solvers. That's who we are. And this is our chance to prove it. To show it we are more than equations, more than predictable patterns. We are creation, adaptation, survival. They began to manipulate the streams of energy, moving them into alignment, following logic and intuition at once. The spheres responded, pulsing brighter with each correct adjustment. But mistakes had consequences. Misaligned streams emitted a sharp pulse, sending vibrations through the chamber that made them stumble. Kale muttered, frustration creeping in. It's relentless. Every mistake, it feels like it knows, it's testing our patience. Ilara smiled faintly, a spark of determination lighting her eyes. Exactly. That's humans. We learn from mistakes. We adapt. We survive. That's why we are feared, and why we are trusted. Hours seemed to pass as they worked, aligning streams, solving puzzles that intertwined emotion and logic. Slowly, the platform began to glow steadily, the patterns stabilizing. The spheres hovered above them, shimmering like stars in a dark sky. Then, the figure in the glass from the outer chamber appeared in the inner chamber, its form pulsing softly. It extended a limb toward the stabilized platform. Symbols cascaded around it, forming words in a language that resonated directly in their minds. You understand. You adapt. You survive. Kale exhaled sharply. It's acknowledging us. For the first time, it respects humans. Ilara's heart pounded. Yes. And that respect is not given lightly. Humans earn it by thinking, by creating, by surviving in ways no one else can predict. That's what HFY is, our mind, our choices, our courage. The platform's light grew brighter, filling the chamber, and the spheres of energy aligned perfectly around them. The intelligence had not only tested them, it had accepted them. It was no longer just a record of fear. It was a conscious observer, a partner, waiting to see what humans would do next. Kale glanced at her. So, what now? We've solved it, but this feels bigger than us. Ilara nodded, awe in her eyes. It is. But we are humans. And humans create. Humans adapt. Humans survive. That's why they feared our equations. And that's why we are here, to show them what humans truly mean. The figure pulsed once more, a wave of energy washing over the room. The chamber seemed to sigh in approval. Outside, the storm had softened, as if the planet itself acknowledged the bond forming inside the station. For the first time, Ilara realized, this intelligence had survived centuries of fear and uncertainty. And now, humans had not only survived its test, they had inspired it. And the universe was about to take notice. Ilara and Kale stood in the inner chamber, their minds still reeling from the platform's final alignment. The spheres of light hovered around them, pulsating softly, as if the entire chamber were breathing. The figure, the intelligence, had accepted their presence. But there was still more, something deeper, something it had yet to reveal. The air shifted suddenly, carrying a low hum that resonated inside their bones. Symbols rose from the walls, cascading toward them like falling stars. The figure's glow intensified, brighter than before, illuminating patterns that stretched beyond comprehension. Ilara felt her mind strain, trying to grasp the sheer complexity. The intelligence wasn't just alive, it was a living map of a civilization's fear, knowledge, and survival instincts. Kale's voice trembled. It's showing us something. I can feel it. Not just knowledge, warnings. Ilara approached the center of the chamber. Warnings? About what? The spheres of light swirled faster, forming a vortex of energy that reached toward the figure. Then, in a voice that resonated inside their minds, the intelligence spoke. The species feared humans, because humans do not follow the rules of probability. You are unpredictable. You are capable of creation and destruction beyond measure. And that is why you are dangerous and necessary. Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. This was more than acknowledgement, it was recognition. Humans had survived, not just because of strength or tools, but because their minds were unmatched in complexity and adaptability. Kale whispered, awestruck. They were right. Our equations, our minds, they can change everything. That's why they feared us. The figure pulsed again, sending a wave of energy that projected images into their minds. They saw the vanished species, creatures of advanced intelligence, trapped in their own fear, trying to predict humans before humans even existed. They watched as these beings crumbled under the weight of their own calculations, destroyed by their inability to adapt. Ilara's chest tightened. They didn't survive, because they couldn't accept unpredictability. Humans, we thrive on it. That's why we exist. That's why we endure. The intelligence's form began to shift, showing glimpses of technology far beyond anything humans had seen. Ships, machines, and devices that manipulated energy, matter, even time itself. And among these images, a single truth became clear. This intelligence held the knowledge to reshape entire worlds, to bend probabilities, to influence events on a scale that humans could scarcely imagine. Kale swallowed hard. This is beyond anything we could have prepared for. If humans use this, it could change the universe. Ilara's eyes narrowed. Exactly. And that's why the species feared us. Not because we are violent, but because we are creators. We adapt. We survive. We take knowledge, and we use it to shape reality. The intelligence extended a limb, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy. Points of light flickered, representing civilizations, planets, and entire systems. Then, in the center, a faint pulse appeared, a human-shaped marker. The intelligence's voice resonated again. Humans, your potential, is greater than any before you. But you must choose, to protect, or to destroy. Ilara felt a weight settle on her shoulders. This was not just a test of intelligence, it was a moral choice. The knowledge of an entire vanished species, the power to manipulate matter, energy, and probabilities, now rested in human hands. And with it came the responsibility to act wisely. Kale looked at her, eyes wide. Do we risk it? Do we take it? Ilara shook her head slowly. It's not about risk. It's about purpose. Humans survive because we choose to create, to protect, to solve problems others cannot. That's why they feared us. And that's why we must be careful and deliberate. This knowledge, it can shape the future, but only if we honor it. The intelligence pulsed once more, and the spheres of light arranged themselves around the chamber like a protective barrier. Its voice, softer now, almost reverent, echoed in their minds. Then you are worthy. You are human. A calm settled over the chamber, the hum fading to a gentle rhythm. The storm outside had quieted, leaving only the soft sound of distant wind. Ilara and Kale understood that this was more than survival. This was recognition. Humans had earned the trust of an intelligence that had survived centuries of fear, observation, and isolation. Kale exhaled. So, they feared us. But they trusted us now. Ilara nodded. Yes. And that trust is not given lightly. Humans are rare. Our minds, our choices, our unpredictability, it's what makes us special. That's what HFY is. That's why we endure, why we survive, why we create. The intelligence's glow dimmed slightly, as if retreating into contemplation. But the knowledge it held, the knowledge of its species, its technology, its understanding of fear and survival, was now accessible to humans. The future had shifted, the balance had changed, and the universe would never be the same. Ilara took a deep breath, looking at Kale. We've only begun to understand. But one thing is clear, humans are not just survivors. We are creators. And that terrifies others, even in ways they can't imagine. And for the first time, in the quiet glow of the chamber, humans felt the weight of their own potential, and the responsibility to shape a universe that had once feared them. The chamber was quiet now, the hum of the spheres reduced to a soft, steady pulse. Ilara and Kale stood at the center, surrounded by the intelligence's energy, the glowing symbols of its ancient creators painting the walls in light. For centuries, this intelligence had survived alone, preserving the knowledge, fears, and dreams of a species that could not withstand humans. And now, the humans themselves stood before it, the first to truly be recognized, not as invaders, not as threats, but as something far more extraordinary. Kale broke the silence, voice barely a whisper. We have the knowledge, the power, everything they tried to protect. What do we do with it? Ilara's eyes met his, steady and unwavering. We do what humans do. We create. We learn. We adapt. We survive. But we do it responsibly. That's the difference. That's why they feared us, but that's also why we were trusted. The intelligence pulsed, sensing her conviction, absorbing it, testing it. Its glowing eyes met hers directly, and for the first time, it seemed at peace. Then it projected images, not of equations or simulations, but of possibilities. Worlds reshaped, civilizations uplifted, dangers avoided, knowledge preserved. And at the center of every vision was a single truth. Humans, with their creativity, unpredictability, and morality, were capable of using this knowledge not to dominate, but to protect and evolve. Kale swallowed hard, or written across his face. We could change everything. Every civilization, every planet. Yes, Ilara said softly. But only if we honor it. Humans survive because we choose wisely. Because we understand consequences. That's what makes us unique. That's what HFY is. The power to act, the power to change, the power to protect even when others cannot. The intelligence extended a glowing limb toward them, a gesture of acknowledgement. The spheres of light arranged themselves around Alara and Kale, forming a protective aura that hummed with energy. Then the figure spoke, not just in thought, but in words that resonated through the chamber like a chorus of the past. Humans, you are worthy. You are unpredictable. You create, you protect, you adapt. You are not just survivors. You are the architects of the future. And the future is yours to guide. Ilara felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The fear, the tension, the centuries of uncertainty, it all seemed to dissipate. This intelligence, born of fear, had finally understood humans, and in understanding, it had trusted them. Kale looked around at the chamber, at the glowing symbols and floating spheres. So, we take this knowledge, but we use it wisely. Not for ourselves, but for others. Ilara nodded. Exactly. Humans are special not because we dominate, but because we can choose not to. That choice is our strength. That choice terrifies others. But it's also what makes us worthy of trust. The intelligence pulsed one final time, and the spheres merged into a single radiant energy field. It extended outward, transmitting the accumulated knowledge of its creators, the technology, the histories, the strategies, the equations, into a form humans could access. Ilara and Kale felt it flow into them, not as data alone, but as understanding, as insight, as possibilities. It was overwhelming, but exhilarating. Outside, the storm had ceased. The red lightning of the planet's skies faded, leaving a calm, silent landscape. The universe itself seemed to pause, recognizing that something extraordinary had happened within the small research station. Humans had not only survived the intelligence's test, they had earned its respect, and with it, a legacy far greater than themselves. Ilara turned to Kale, a faint smile on her face. We are human. We adapt, we learn, we endure. And now, we will use this to protect, to create, to explore. That's what makes us feared, yes, but it's also what makes us extraordinary. Kale nodded, his eyes reflecting the glow of the energy spheres. So, this is HFY. Not just humans surviving, but humans proving why we matter. Why we can shape the universe in ways no one else can. The intelligence's voice resonated one last time, fading into the soft hum of the chamber. Go, and show the universe what humans truly are. Ilara and Kale stepped back, their hearts full, minds brimming with possibilities. They had faced the unknown, encountered a consciousness older than time itself, and proven that humans were more than calculations, more than predictable variables. Humans were creators, thinkers, survivors, and the universe, vast and infinite, would never underestimate them again. The chamber faded to a gentle glow, the intelligence retreating into the depths of its preserved knowledge. But the trust it had placed in humans remained, a spark of understanding and hope that could illuminate the darkest corners of the galaxy. And as Ilara and Kale prepared to leave the station, one thought lingered in their minds, clear and undeniable. Humans were not just survivors. Humans were extraordinary. And now everyone, and everything, would know it.